And now let's turn our attention to Russia. The big story is still Wagner, the mercenary group. Their chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, is believed to be dead. What does it mean for Wagner and for its global operations? And what does it mean for Russia? Tonight we'll discuss all of that, also bring you updates on Prigozhin's case. As of today, there is chaos brewing. Prigozhin is said to have died in a plane crash. This happened on Wednesday. 10 people were on board. All of them are dead. Was Prigozhin among them? The US and the UK believe that he was. And honestly, his death does not come as a surprise. He did lead a mutiny, a failed mutiny, and that too against Vladimir Putin. He's not known to take prisoners. Putin comes down hard on those who challenge his authority. Prigozhin did it 2 months ago, and now he's dead. Exactly 2 months. Too dramatic to be a coincidence. The West is publicly pointing fingers at Vladimir Putin. Others are whispering in private. There are rumors of a Russian missile attack, an S-300 missile bringing Prigozhin's plane down, or a bomb being smuggled onto the plane in a wine crate. All sorts of stories. We have no confirmation on how the plane crashed. And the Kremlin has denied any involvement. Yesterday, Putin offered his condolences. He said the contributions of the Wagner Group will not be forgotten.
As for the aviation tragedy, first of all, I want to express my sincerest condolences to the families of all the victims. It is always a tragedy. Indeed, if there were, and the primary data indicates that there were employees of the Wagner PMC, I would want to note that these people made a significant contribution to our common cause of fighting the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine. We remember this, we know it, and we will not forget it.
It's not just Wagner contributions in Ukraine. Putin acknowledged the group's role in Africa too, and how Prigozhin set up a successful empire there.
He was a talented person, a talented businessman. He worked not only in our country and worked with results, but also abroad in Africa, in particular. He was involved in oil, gas, precious metals and stones there.
Was Putin's message a bit to calm things down, a way to placate the Wagner Group and its supporters? Because there has been an outpouring of grief. Memorials have been set up in various Russian cities. People have been paying their respects, and they're doing this for a man who challenged the Russian state, for a man who marched almost to the gates of Moscow. Prigozhin has public sympathy in Russia. There's also anger over his death. Some Wagner fighters have sworn vengeance. They've threatened another march to Moscow. Remember, after the failed mutiny, thousands of Wagner troops went to Belarus. It is not far. So another march is very much possible if that's what they decide. Is that what Putin was trying to prevent with his statement? Or does he have another plan? His reference to Africa was telling. The Wagner Group has a strong presence there. They operate in Libya, the Central African Republic and Mali. We know that for certain. It seems there were plans for an expansion. Just look at Prigozhin's last message. It was released on Monday, less than 2 days before his death. This is what he said.
We are working. The temperature is 50 plus. Everything is as we like. Wagner PMC conducts reconnaissance and search actions, makes Russia even greater on all continents and Africa more free. Justice and happiness for the African people. We are making life a nightmare for ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other bandits. We are taking true warriors into service and continue fulfilling the tasks that were set. We made promises we would succeed.
It's an advertisement for Wagner services, especially in militancy-hit West Africa. Think about the recent coup in Niger. The coup supporters were anti-France and pro-Russia. And in Africa, Russia means Wagner. But the people in Niger do not think too much will change.
The death of Wagner's boss is a great loss for us, a great loss. But we must believe he will soon be replaced in order to ensure the continuity of the group's activities.
Wagner has been Russia's long arm in Africa, a way for them to expand their footprint. It propped up the regimes in Mali and the Central African Republic. It's been fighting on the side of rebels in Libya. On Tuesday, a senior Russian defense official visited Libya. He said Wagner troops would report to a new commander. Now, this was 1 day after Prigozhin's video came out and 1 day before he was killed. So Russia was assuring Libyan rebels that Wagner operations would go on as usual. In the Central African Republic, the Kremlin signed a deal with the government. So the plan is that Prigozhin's death should not change very much. Commanders can change, but the deal with Moscow will continue.
I don't think there will be any real impact on what's happening in the Central African Republic. We know that President Vladimir Putin initially brought Wagner here, which was denied. And now everyone knows that Wagner is here. Wagner is the security aspect with their instructors, who are in fact mercenaries. But there's also the commercial, economic Wagner, who traffics in gold, diamonds, timber, and all sorts of other things, but also trades through Russian beer.
He mentioned the economic Wagner. Putin too spoke about it, about Prigozhin's successful business empire. You see, Wagner Group isn't just about mercenaries. They operate mines and logging companies in Africa. They get a part of the profits for protecting oil fields in Syria. Wagner is like a diverse multinational company. And that will be one of its biggest challenges now. Prigozhin is dead, along with his core team. They're the ones who control this vast business empire. It will not be easy to replace them. But the thing is, Russia may not want to replace them. They wouldn't want to create another powerful person like Prigozhin. Instead, they would want to break up Wagner into different smaller businesses and perhaps have some of them absorbed by other firms. After all, Wagner is not Russia's only private mercenary group. There are others like Redut and Convoy. They report to Russia's defense ministry, these groups, so they're considered easier to control. But they aren't anywhere near as effective as Wagner, and yet Russia is encouraging Wagner troops to join these groups. Is it a sign of things to come? Forced mergers between Wagner and other mercenary groups in Russia. It would achieve two goals. The other groups, the other companies, would become more valuable, and Wagner would be finished. The private mercenary business is lucrative. It also helps Russia exert its influence covertly, so Moscow will keep them alive, but also under check. It won't create another Wagner or Prigozhin. And speaking of narratives, an old label has resurfaced to haunt Germany. It's being called the sick man of Europe again, and for good reason. Their growth has plummeted, inflation is high, and manufacturing is weak. In the month of May, Germany officially fell into a recession. Today, new numbers have come out and they show that the situation has not improved much. Germany grew by 0%, meaning 0% growth. This is in the second quarter of 2023, hence the label the sick man of Europe. Germany was called the sick man last in 1998 for completely different reasons though. The country had just been reunified, the market was tough, exports had slowed, so unemployment hit double digits. This led to a series of radical reforms, and after that Germany prospered. It became the fourth largest economy in the world and the world's third biggest exporter. In fact, Germany's growth was the envy of Europe. German exports were world renowned, from Adidas shoes to cars like BMW. Germany made a reputation for itself as a hub for world-class production. Then why are they struggling now? Well, Germany now is suffering from a very different sickness. Broadly, the German economy has two pillars of growth, industries and exports. Both have a major impact on their economy, and as we speak, both these sectors are showing weakness. Let's go through this one by one. Starting with German industries, they're producing fewer goods. In the month of May this year, production fell. Germany is known for its cars more than anything else. The auto industry accounts for 5% of their economy. New car registrations fell by over 10%, so fewer cars are being sold. The next month, the month of June, did not bring any good news. Germany's total industrial output fell further. Experts were predicting a 0.5% decline, 0.5% decline. That was a prediction. But how much was the actual fall? 1.5%. So 3 times more. Again, the reasons were the same. Fewer new orders and sluggish output. All key markets, in fact, bought fewer German goods. German exports to the EU, for instance, fell by over 6%. The United States more than 10%, China 9.3%. And this is in line with a global trend. There is a slowdown around the world. There is a general dip in demand. And Germany finds itself at the receiving end here. So what has been Berlin's response? Initially, they tried to play down the crisis. In the month of May, Chancellor Olaf Scholz appeared before the press. He looked confident. The Chancellor assured that Germany has done enough to avoid a downturn.
The German economy's prospects are very good. We are solving the challenges we face. What you notice is that there is a lot of investment going on in Germany in terms of battery factories, chip factories, which is increasing considerably, and therefore we can be very confident.
So what we're seeing is a stronger slowdown in Germany, for instance, and some more resilience in some of the southern countries, Italy and Spain among them.
Now, we know it did not turn out that way. The International Monetary Fund gave its verdict in July, declared Germany will be the only G7 economy to shrink. And that trend may be here to stay. According to the IMF, German growth will be slower than the United States, Britain, France and Spain over the next 5 years. One of the reasons for that is protectionism. Countries across the world are adopting protectionist policies, meaning they're supporting domestic players over global competition. So policies are designed to help companies at home. That is protectionism. The US and China are the biggest export markets for Germany. They're stepping up their domestic investments. They're pushing companies to create more jobs at home. This will have an adverse impact on the German economy. Exports make up 50% of their economy. This includes goods and services. So can Berlin survive the impact of the slowdown? It's going to be tough. Germany has not made enough investments at home to cushion the blow. Perhaps it's time for another set of reforms. This sickness needs surgery. Antibiotics will not be enough. From sick countries, let's move to something apparently getting better, and that is Apple. The notoriously inflexible tech behemoth, it seems to have had a change of heart. You can now finally start repairing your iPhones. You won't have to keep replacing your MacBooks every so often. You can finally just get Apple devices fixed because Apple says it will back a new law in the US state of California, the right to repair law. After years of stiff resistance, Apple is making a U-turn. It will finally allow people to repair Apple devices. And we're talking about normal people, not just the Apple employees in their secure facilities. Like we said, Apple has been fighting to keep its repair process exclusive for years. It has tried to hold on to the repair monopoly, which is why repairs are so expensive for Apple products and why sometimes it seems cheaper to just get the latest model. The repair monopoly helps Apple with revenues. It also ends up polluting the planet more by encouraging e-waste. So this move by Apple is a green one, and it set the ball rolling for a more sustainable future. Here's our report.
There are a lot of human rights. The right to life, work and dignity, even education and free movement. But have you heard about the right to repair? You may not have, because it's not exactly a right yet. It's still just a law about to be passed in some states in the US. But the California right to repair just got a shot in the arm because it has a powerful new backer, the tech giant Apple. What's more, Apple is a convert. It has made a U-turn on its stance. Traditionally, it has opposed the right to repair and even lobbied against it. But now the iPhone maker has seen the light and decided to support this right to repair. Which brings us to the question, what does that phrase even mean? We'll explain with an example. What happens when something breaks in your house? A minor break, like a chair screw falling out, or a small tear in your sofa cushion. Would you just throw it out? Or get the maker of the chair to put the screw back in? Or do you think you'd just do it yourself? Most likely fix it yourself, right? And usually, there's nothing stopping you. After all, you own the chair, sofa, or anything else in your house. It's up to you if you want to tinker with it. What about a bigger problem? Like a problem with your fridge or microwave. If your warranty was over, wouldn't you still call someone to fix it? Not necessarily someone from the company, just a regular electrician. Again, it's your product and you should be able to get it fixed. Well, so far this didn't apply to Apple products. They could only be fixed by certified Apple technicians, officially anyway. You see, Apple spare parts are hard to come by. The company jealously guards its technology, so any unofficial repair shop won't likely have a replacement part for your problem. This is by design. It helps Apple sell its warranties and drives business to official repair centers, where if you don't have a warranty, they can charge absurd sums to fix simple problems. Basically, Apple has a monopoly. But it seems that it wants to give this monopoly up. Apple has extended its support to California's new right to repair law. So, if it passes, Apple spare parts will enter the market. Repair shops will cry tears of joy, and you can try to show off your engineering skills on a very, very expensive device. But, jokes aside, the move is a great step forward towards a greener future. Repair monopolies and their unreasonable costs lead to a use and throw culture, which is something Apple has often been accused of encouraging. It's great for the company. Dedicated Apple fans splurge on the latest devices, and the company makes billions. But what of the older products? The old devices become e-waste, destined for landfills. When easy, affordable repairs are possible, we tend to reduce waste. Apple has already been pulled up for e-waste by the EU regarding its Lightning charger. The EU said the unique charger was creating e-waste and ordered Apple to conform to the standard Type-C. It's why the next iPhone can be charged with any standard charger, not just a fancy, sleek, white monopoly piece. The fight against e-waste has just begun. The more our world becomes more and more immersed in tech, the more e-waste we'll generate, and the more we'll pollute our planet. Maybe Apple has finally realized this. It could be the reason for its U-turn on the right to repair. Or maybe it's just self-preservation. After all, the EU forced it to change its charging port. Maybe Apple thinks it needs to play ball to avoid another rap on the knuckles. Whatever the case, the right to repair has a powerful new ally. And with Apple on its side, other companies should start moving out of the way. This can only mean that finally the planet has a win against pollution. Hopefully, the momentum can continue.
Now let's talk about another crisis the world is turning a blind eye to: myopia or short-sightedness. It's where people can see close-up objects clearly, but their distance vision is blurry. Myopia is a largely unrecognized epidemic. It is targeting the young. An entire generation of nearsighted kids is growing up right before our eyes. In fact, many are going blind. High myopia is a leading cause of blindness in China, Japan and Taiwan. In China, 90% of the teens are myopic. Same for Taiwan, 90% high schoolers are myopic. In Japan, more than 60%, and in South Korea, Seoul, 97% 19-year-old men are myopic. What about the rates in India, the US and Europe? Well below 50%, but rising sharply. In fact, by 2050, half of the world population could be wearing glasses. Why is this happening and what can we do to fix it? Our next report tells you.
The world is myopic about a number of things: climate change, wealth gap, gender parity, you name it. Before we call it a day, let's add another issue to that list. We're talking about myopia itself. The world seems to lack foresight. It can't see the epidemic of myopia that's brewing right before everyone's eyes. What's worse, it's targeting the young. Kids, teens, young adults. You pick the age group and chances are you'll see the young under threat from myopia. A disease they didn't see coming, and a disease that's making many go blind. First, let's talk about the basics. What is myopia? It refers to short-sightedness. It's an eye disorder. People with myopia can clearly see close-up objects. For example, they can read a book. Wait, let's be real. They can watch a reel on their phone without facing a problem. But their distance vision is blurry, meaning they can't see the blackboard or recognize faces of people standing at a distance. And this isn't ideal, even for the antisocial. So myopic people usually wear glasses or contact lenses to correct their vision. After all, not everyone can be Spider-Man. Over the past few years, there has been an explosion of myopia in Asia. In China, 90% of teenagers and young adults are myopic. In the 1950s, that figure was 10%. In South Korea, Seoul, 96.5% of 19-year-old males are short-sighted. Singapore has a myopia rate of about 80% in young adults. In Taiwan, 90% of high schoolers are myopic. And in Japan, over 62%. Around the 1950s, that number was just 11%. In other parts of the world, these numbers are relatively lower. In the US and the UK, myopia rates are below 50%. But even if these numbers sound better than those in Asia, it's not cause for happiness. They all saw a sharp rise in just the past few decades, much like the Asian outlier, India. It's another example of this phenomenon. Today, 21% of children suffer from myopia, a relatively small number, but back in 1999, it was about 4%. In fact, numbers are increasing so sharply all over the world, doctors estimate that by 2050, half of the world will be wearing glasses. The problem is already getting out of hand. High myopia has become the leading cause of blindness in Japan, China, and Taiwan. If current trends continue, the situation will only get worse. Millions more people around the world will go blind, and much earlier in life than expected. So the question is, why are so many children becoming myopic? In the past, a number of factors were blamed: brown hair, long heads, pipe smoking, pregnancy, big eyes, muscle spasms. Thankfully, today they're all folk theories. Now ask anyone and they'll blame mobiles. A few years ago, they would have blamed television or reading under the covers with a bad flashlight. Then there's genetics. They say if your parents have glasses on, so will you. But that's not always true. This begs the next question. What is the main problem? It's the lifestyle of children. In a nutshell, the more time kids spend outside, the less likely they are to develop myopia. Looking at distant objects helps children. So does outdoor light. Sunlight is great for their eyes. This explains why the silent progression of myopia hastened during the pandemic. In 2020, an average 8-year-old was spending over 5 hours a day glued to screens. And that's just for fun. Add more screen time to that for schoolwork. The problem is real and the pandemic made it worse. But now that it's over, we are free to go out and play. Because as it plays out, for children, venturing out is serious business. At this point, they need it. They need to detach from their mobiles and tablets and spend time out in the open, even if it's for a few hours of playtime, or for a hobby, or to take their pet dog for a walk. Because myopia is like a ticking time bomb. In order to defuse it, we must carry it outside.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story, starting with dramatic footage of an Argentine woman. She hung from a cable and slid down to escape from a burning building in Buenos Aires. Speaking of dramatic footage, water gushed from a burst pipeline in India's Mumbai. The leakage threw up water 70 feet in the air. After height, let's also talk about weight. From tigers to penguins, all kinds of animals jumped onto weighing scales in a zoo in London, making it the cutest annual health check. And finally, what makes August the 25th significant? We're taking you back in history to the year 1944. On this day, Paris was liberated from Nazi Germany's occupation. This marks a significant event during the Second World War. We're leaving you with these images. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
तो कुछ और ही है, समझ में